It was a quiet afternoon in southeast Delhi when chaos suddenly broke through the calm. On June 13th, the control room of Pul Praladpur police station buzzed with an urgent message. A young woman was found lying unconscious and bleeding on the rooftop of an unfinished 5-story building near Nagia Plant, Vishwakarma Colony. The call was brief, the voice trembling. No one knew who she was, or if she was even alive. Sub-Inspector M.L. Meena, Head Constable Anil Kumar, and Constable Bobby Yadav raced toward the location. The half-constructed structure loomed like a ghost against the summer sky. Within 10 minutes they climbed the dusty stairs to the terrace, and there she was. A woman, no older than 22, lay motionless in a pool of her own blood. Her face and hair were soaked crimson. A blood-smeared brick rested nearby, silent and cold, as if mocking the scene it had created. The officers checked her pulse, faint but alive. "We need to move fast," Meena said sharply, his voice steady despite the horror. They didn't wait for an ambulance. The girl was rushed to Batra Hospital, fighting between life and death. Within minutes, Station House Officer Ajay Pratap Singh arrived, his eyes locked on the girl's blood-stained face. She was still breathing, but unconscious. For now, her silence was the only clue. Back at the site, Meena and his team began to piece together the mystery. The building, they learned, belonged to a man named Amit Mittal, still under construction. Workers nearby claimed they knew nothing of the girl. One laborer, Papu Kumar, was the first to find her. His voice shook as he recounted the discovery. He had been painting a wall when he went upstairs for water, only to find her sprawled out in blood. Shocked, he alerted his supervisor Viplav Dev, who immediately called the police. The workers' small makeshift huts stood behind the site, made of tin and plastic sheets. When Meena questioned them further, one of the laborers recalled something strange from the previous night. A man had arrived with his wife, asking for a place to stay. The man's name, he said, was Ajit, from Muzaffarnagar, Uttar Pradesh. He had once worked in the same area and claimed he was visiting an old friend, but the friend wasn't there and his phone was off. Out of pity, the laborer allowed the couple to spend the night in his hut. But at midnight, the man and his wife had stepped out, saying they'd be back soon. They never returned. Now, seeing the photograph of the injured girl on Meena's phone, her face disfigured but her pink salwar and blue kurta unmistakable, the worker froze. Yes, this is the same woman," he said in a trembling voice. The man beside her, Ajit, was gone. By evening, the police registered a case of attempted murder against an unknown assailant, yet the victim's identity remained a mystery. The next morning, she was still unconscious, machines beeping steadily around her. The hospital staff couldn't admit her under any name. Who would pay her bills? No relatives had come forward. No one had reported her missing. Sub-Inspector Meena stood beside her hospital bed, his mind filled with questions. Who was she? Why would someone attack her so brutally? Moved by humanity, he requested Dr. Sheila Dutt, the medical superintendent of Batra Hospital, to continue her treatment. Dr. Dutt, known for her compassion, agreed without hesitation. "Don't worry about the money," she said softly. "We'll take care of her. Let's just save this girl first." Days turned into weeks. The police searched every district in Muzaffarnagar and Meerut, checking records for any missing woman in her early 20s. But no match came. Meena had posters printed and distributed across Delhi and neighboring towns. Newspapers carried her picture under the headline, "Do you know this girl?" Yet no one came forward. Her face was just another forgotten name in a city filled with strangers. 2 months passed. The girl's condition began to improve. Under the care of Dr. Parvez Khan, a neurosurgeon, she finally opened her eyes. The police rushed to her bedside expecting answers, but fate had another twist waiting. She could not speak coherently. Her eyes looked empty, distant. She didn't even recognize her own reflection in the mirror. The doctors confirmed their worst fear. The head trauma had erased her memory completely. Her name, her past, her attacker, all gone. Still, Meena didn't give up. He visited her daily, talking gently, trying to stir fragments of memory. Sometimes she would weep uncontrollably, whispering names that made no sense. Other times she would scream in the night as if haunted by shadows of what had happened. She didn't know where she belonged, but she knew she was missing something. Or someone. Dr. Sheila Dutt refused to discharge her until she was stable. "Let her heal here," she said firmly. "We'll bear the cost." The hospital had already spent thousands of rupees on her care, a rare act of kindness in a private hospital where profit usually came before compassion. Slowly, under the warm patience of doctors and the constant presence of Meena, the girl began to recover physically, but her mind was still a locked room. One night, however, a glimmer of hope emerged. During a quiet conversation, she suddenly mumbled a few numbers, phone numbers, though incomplete. Her voice trembled, but her eyes flickered with something, recognition, perhaps. Meena's heart raced. Was this the key to unlocking her lost past? The next morning, he returned with renewed determination. "You're safe now," he said softly. "Try to remember anything. A name, a place, a face." She closed her eyes, whispering the names Chandni and Ashish. "My children," she said faintly, before breaking down in tears. Meena froze. Children. The revelation changed everything. This wasn't just a lost girl. This was a mother, torn from her family, her identity stolen by a brutal act of violence. But who had done this? Why would anyone want her dead? Each day brought small fragments of her past, like scattered pieces of a puzzle. "I'm married," she murmured once. "My home, Kannauj." That was the breakthrough the police had been waiting for. Sho Ajay Pratap Singh, coincidentally from the same district, took personal charge. He began listing towns from Kannauj, watching her reactions closely. When he mentioned Gursahaiganj, she nodded faintly, but it was the name Jamla village that made her eyes widen in recognition. "Yes," she said softly, "Jamla, that's my home." The mystery girl finally had a name, though still hidden deep inside her fading memory. But before the police could reach her family, another twist arrived at 2 in the morning. The nurse on duty called Meena urgently. The girl had suddenly remembered a full 10-digit phone number. Meena dialed it immediately. After several rings, a tired voice answered. "Hello, Jagbir speaking." That one name changed everything. The shrill ring of the phone echoed through the stillness of the hospital ward. Sub-Inspector M.L. Meena waited anxiously on the line, his heartbeat sinking with each tone. When a man finally answered, his voice carried both confusion and fatigue. "Hello, Jagbir speaking." Meena's throat tightened. "Sir, this is S.I. Meena from Delhi Police. Do you have a daughter named Neelam?" There was a pause, heavy and haunting, then came a broken whisper. "Neelam. She's been missing since May 6th. The silence that followed was deafening. For months, the man had lived between hope and despair, never knowing whether his daughter was alive or dead. And now, suddenly, there she was, alive, lying in a Delhi hospital with no memory of who she was. By dawn, Jagbir had already sent his wife and son to Delhi. When they reached Batra Hospital, the moment their eyes met Neelam's, something sacred unfolded. Her mother's trembling hands touched her daughter's face, and for the first time in months, Neelam's eyes filled with light. "Ma," she whispered weakly. The room fell silent. The mother wept uncontrollably while her brother held her tight. She had finally come home, even if her mind still wandered in the fog. As the family embraced, police officers stepped aside, their eyes moist but their resolve sharper than ever. Now they had a name, Neelam, daughter of Jagbir from Jamla village, Kannauj. The puzzle had finally started to take shape. The next step was to find the man Ho had nearly destroyed her life. But first, Meena and Shecho Ajay Pratap Singh needed Neelam to recover enough to remember what had really happened that night. Days passed. With her family's presence, Neelam began to regain her strength. She would smile faintly, hum forgotten lullabies, and sometimes stare blankly into space, her eyes carrying secrets she couldn't yet unlock. The police gently urged her to remember. "Who were you with, Neelam? How did you come to Delhi?" They tried not to push too hard, but Meena's patience was wearing thin. Every passing day meant her attacker was one step further away. Then, one evening as the golden sunset filtered through the hospital window, Neelam whispered a name that sent chills down everyone's spine. "Ravi." Meena leaned forward. "Ravi? Who is Ravi?" She hesitated, her voice trembling. He's the one I came to Delhi with." Those few words changed everything. Neelam could barely recall faces, but her emotions filled the gaps. She spoke of Ravi as someone she once trusted completely, someone who had made her believe in love, someone who had promised forever, and instead left her for dead. The details were hazy, but the pain in her voice was unmistakable. Meena knew now that this was no random act of violence. It was betrayal. When questioned further, Neelam revealed fragments of her story. 2 years earlier, her family's old mobile number had started receiving random calls from an unknown man. His voice was soft, persuasive, and endlessly talkative. He introduced himself as Ravi, claiming to be from Uttar Pradesh. At first it was casual, friendly conversations, harmless laughter. But soon it turned into something more. Neelam, innocent and sheltered, began to fall for him. Ravi made her feel special, unlike anyone else ever had. They talked for hours, sharing dreams of a life together. He painted a world where love was pure, away from her strict family and village gossip. "One day," he said, "we'll be free, just you and me." Slowly, those words became her reality. Neelam stopped questioning him. She trusted his voice more than her own reflection. Then came May 6th, the day she decided to leave everything behind. Ravi called her that night, excitement in his tone. "Come to Lucknow bus stand tomorrow morning," he said. "I'll be waiting. We'll get married and start our new life." Her heart pounded as she packed her clothes quietly, glancing at her sleeping parents one last time. She didn't know she was walking straight into a trap. At dawn, she boarded a bus from her village to Gursa Highganj, then another to Lucknow. The journey felt like a dream. And there he was, Ravi, tall, smiling, his eyes filled with warmth. "I told you I'd come," he said as he took her hand. For the first time, Neelam believed love could rewrite destiny. They spent the day together, eating street food, laughing like school kids. By evening, Ravi took her to a small lodge. "Just to rest," he said. Naive and exhausted, she agreed. But the next morning, everything changed. Neelam told him she wanted to go home, to tell her parents about their marriage plans. Ravi's face darkened. "No," he said coldly. "You're with me now. There's no going back." The charm was gone, replaced by control. Still, Neelam clung to hope. To keep her quiet, Ravi took her to a temple in Mansa village, where he forced a local priest to perform a hasty marriage ritual. No family, no witnesses, just fear disguised as love. For 7 days, Neelam stayed with him in his village home. What she thought would be love turned into confinement. Ravi's tone became cruel, his eyes full of irritation. "Yo, you wanted this," he would sneer whenever she cried. "Now live with it." But deep down, Ravi had already made his decision. Neelam was a mistake he wanted to erase. He began planning her death. To everyone in his village, he said she was his wife, but to his friends, he called her a burden. When his temper flared, he would throw things, shout, or disappear for hours. Then one morning, he told Neelam they were going to Delhi for a few days to meet his relatives. She believed him. They reached Delhi and stayed briefly with some distant acquaintances near Narela. But Ravi was restless, looking for the right time and place. He needed a location no one would question. That's when he remembered his old job, the construction site in Pul Praladpur. It was isolated, half-built, and mostly empty at night, the perfect spot for a murder. On June 12th, he took Neelam there under the pretense of visiting a friend. When the laborer said the friend wasn't around, Ravi pretended to be stranded and requested a place to stay for the night. The kind-hearted worker allowed them to sleep in his small hut, not realizing he was sheltering a killer. Around midnight, Ravi woke Neelam, whispering, "Let's go for a walk. The night breeze will help you sleep." She followed him without hesitation. Together, they walked up to the rooftop of the unfinished building. The stars were hidden behind clouds. The city below was asleep. Neelam smiled faintly, unaware of the death looming behind her. Ravi picked up a brick, his hands trembling not from guilt, but from fear of being trapped in a relationship he no longer wanted. He struck her head once. The sound echoed across the silent site. Neelam gasped, eyes wide in shock. She turned to him, confusion written across her face. "Why?" But before she could speak, another blow landed. Blood splattered across the concrete. She fell. Ravi didn't stop. He kept hitting until she stopped moving. Then, breathing heavily, he dropped the brick, wiped his hands, and vanished into the night, leaving behind the woman who had once trusted him with her life. When Neelam finished recalling these flashes of horror, she broke down completely. The room fell silent except for her sobs. Her mother held her close, whispering prayers. Mina's fists clenched. "He tried to kill her," he muttered under his breath, "and now he's hiding." But where was Ravi now? Had he escaped to another state, or was he still somewhere near, watching from the shadows? The silence after Neelam's confession hung heavy in the room. Everyone, the officers, her family, even the hospital staff, stood frozen, absorbing the horror of what she had survived. She had loved him, trusted him, and followed him blindly into the darkness, and in return, Ravi had tried to erase her from the world, but she lived. A broken memory turned into a living testimony of betrayal. Inspector Ajay Pratap Singh's voice broke the silence. "We have his name. That's enough to begin." Within hours, a special team was formed under SIML Mina's leadership. Their target was clear: find Ravi, the man who turned love into a crime. The search began where the trail had ended, Muzaffarnagar, Uttar Pradesh. For days, the team combed through villages, knocking on doors, showing Ravi's photograph to locals. Some claimed to have seen him months ago, working at a construction site. Others whispered stories of his temper and arrogance. He used to boast about girls, one man said, spitting on the ground. Said he could make any woman do what he wanted. The team's anger deepened, but the man himself was nowhere to be found. Following every lead, Mina's team traveled through Meerut, Lucknow, and Sitapur, tracing every shadow Ravi had left behind. They learned he had once worked as a daily laborer in Delhi, then disappeared after June 2017. The same month Neelam was attacked. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The search dragged on for months until October brought an unexpected clue. A tip came from a small-town police outpost near Muzaffarnagar. The officer reported a man named Ravi, working at a construction site in Lucknow, living quietly with his father. His description matched perfectly. Without wasting a second, Delhi police joined forces with local authorities and launched a night raid. It was around midnight when they found him. Sitting in a dimly lit room, his face half hidden behind cigarette smoke. When he saw the police flashlights pierce the darkness, his face turned pale. For a brief second, he tried to run, but before he could reach the door, 2 constables tackled him to the ground. "Ravi," Meena said coldly, "we've been waiting for you." At first, Ravi denied everything. "I don't know any Neelam," he said confidently. "You've got the wrong man." But his calm exterior began to crack under the steady pressure of interrogation. The moment Meena showed him Neelam's photograph, her face bandaged, bruised but alive, Ravi's eyes darted away. His silence was louder than words. Within minutes, the truth began to spill out like poison. He confessed that he had met Neelam over the phone 2 years ago. "She was sweet," he muttered, "too trusting, too easy to control." He admitted that at first he had enjoyed the attention, the affection, but when she insisted on marriage and followed him home, his pride turned to frustration. "She became a burden," he said coldly. "I wanted her gone." The confession sent shivers down everyone's spine. Ravi's words showed no remorse, no emotion, just the chilling logic of a man who treated human lives as disposable. He described in disturbing detail how he planned her murder, waited for the right moment, and left her bleeding on a rooftop. When asked why he didn't check if she was dead, he smirked. "I didn't need to. No one survives that much blood." But Neelam did. Ravi was brought back to Delhi and presented in Saket Court on October 6, 2017. The magistrate Ankit Lal granted 2 days of police custody for further questioning. Over those 48 hours, Meena and his team gathered every possible piece of evidence, from blood-stained bricks to the wooden plank he used during the assault, recovered near Tughlakabad Fort. Witnesses from the construction site identified him without hesitation. On October 8th, Ravi was formally charged with attempted murder and sent to Tihar jail. The court proceedings were slow, as they often are, but every hearing brought Neelam one step closer to justice. She attended the sessions quietly, her eyes no longer afraid, her voice firm. When asked to identify her attacker, she pointed at Ravi without blinking. The man who once controlled her life now stood behind iron bars, powerless. The story of Neelam spread across Delhi like wildfire. Newspapers called her the girl who forgot her name but remembered her pain. Her survival became a symbol of courage and resilience. Even the doctors at Batra Hospital, who had treated her for months, visited the court one day to see the woman they had saved. The hospital had spent over 52,000 on her treatment, never asking for a single rupee in return. Compassion had rewritten the ending of a tragedy that began with cruelty. Back in her village, life slowly returned to normal. The fields once filled with whispers now echoed with respect. Her father, Jagbir, looked at her with quiet pride. "You lived, Neelam," he said one evening. "That's more powerful than anything he tried to take from you." But Neelam knew that surviving wasn't enough. She had to keep her story alive so no other girl would make the same mistake she did. Months later, when the final verdict came, Ravi was sentenced to imprisonment for his crime. He stood in court, staring blankly as the judge spoke, his arrogance gone. The same hands that once held a phone to lure an innocent girl were now chained by the very justice he had underestimated. Neelam didn't celebrate. She simply closed her eyes, letting out a quiet sigh. Justice doesn't erase scars, but it gives them meaning. After the trial, Neelam visited the rooftop where it all began. The building had long been completed, now home to families who had no idea of the blood once spilled there. She stood under the same sky, looking at the same spot where her life had nearly ended. But this time, she wasn't the frightened girl lying in the dust. She was the survivor standing above it. As the wind brushed past her hair, Neelam whispered to herself, "Love doesn't destroy, people do." Her eyes filled with tears, not of pain, but of quiet strength. Somewhere deep inside, she forgave the man who tried to end her, not for him, but for herself. She had walked through fire and come out alive. Before leaving, she turned one last time and looked at the city skyline. How many Neelams, she wondered, are still out there, trusting the wrong voices, walking into the same darkness I escaped? The end, but not the conclusion. Because the question remains, when love turns into deception, how can one truly know who's genuine and who's hiding a monster behind a smile?